I want to take some time and kind of explain to you how I ended up at Esri and why I do what I do and why it's important to me. In order to do that, I felt that by sharing some of my previous experiences, it would lead you to understand why this is so important to me and part of my life's work. When I started off in the fire service, this map was a central part of everything I did. This map would tell me where the emergency was, where the supplies were, where my fellow workers were, where the heliphones were, where the incident might go, where the danger spots were. Every conversation in public safety around an incident is around a map. And when you don't have a map, you're sketching a map in the dirt. So this became a really important part of my life, ingrained in what I did. Later in life, in a weak moment, somebody said, "You ought to go into the smoke jumpers." And I went, "Yeah, that sounds good." Have you ever signed up for something at the time and it sounded like a really good idea? And then when it was time to do it, you went, "You want me to do what? Really?" Well, I went ahead and did that. And guess what? The map became even more important. As you can see by the picture, you're jumping into areas that you've never been. There are no, at times, obvious features and landmarks. I wanted to make sure somebody knew where I was. And I also wanted to know, before I jumped into that area, what was the shortest way out, because we were carrying a lot of gear and I didn't want to have to carry it any further than I needed to. Later in my career, I finally achieved an incident commander's role for one of the national teams. And I was kind of basking in the glory of that prestigious position, and we got a call. I said, "You have an incident." I went, "Great, where are we going?" They said, "Yellowstone." I went, "Yellowstone, how cool is that?" Well, the whole place was on fire, so it really wasn't that cool. To complicate that, they said, "This is one of the U.S.'s national treasures, and under no circumstances can this burn. You have to protect this, one of your number one priorities." Then they told me the rest of the story. Most of the regular firefighting resources were assigned to communities that were on fire. Cook City, West Yellowstone. They said, "All we have to give you is one fire truck and the United States Army battalion." And having the Army was great, but they're not trained firefighters. They didn't understand tactics and strategy for fires in extreme conditions, and these were as extreme as they got. So what became important was the map. We sat for hours looking at this map saying, okay, if this fire lines up and it comes into Yellowstone, where are we going to position people? How are we going to bring them back into the area? Because we could not put untrained firefighters into an area like this as the fire came through. So we had to take a completely different strategy. We had to wait till the fire came through and then move people in. This map and the precision of our planning became critical. So once again, the map played a really important part of what we were doing. So as the fire did begin to line up, as it did set itself up with the wind behind it to come into Yellowstone, we foamed the Old Faithful Lodge and moved everybody out. Moved them completely out of the way. Myself and one other person sat at the top of the Old Faithful Inn and watched and waited for the fire to line up. And our role was to sit there, wait till the fire came through, and then call the troops in to do their job. That's what it looked like. I remember this now as if it happened yesterday. And it was a scary moment. And I was pretty trained, I was pretty comfortable, but I still had the tendency to run. Not only because of the fire, but because I could see the lodge burning, and I didn't want to stand in front of the media explaining how that happened. But we were successful. We brought the troops in, put the fires out, lost a few outbuildings, but generally successful. And the map was the key reason that we were successful, the planning we did with the map. Then something really tragic happened. Towards the end of my career, a fire occurred called Storm King Mountain. A fire in rough terrain, a fire that jumpers jumped into, hotshot crews were brought in. They didn't have really good maps, Xerox copies of maps. They did not have good situational awareness in a really bad situation. They did not have the information that a weather front was developing that would bring extreme winds into the area. They didn't have situational awareness that they needed. As a result, the fire blew up. And these 14 young, vibrant people perished. Tragic. Made an unbelievable impression on me on how important what we do is and the ability to get information to people so this does not happen. Today, our technology, our ArcGIS system, with its capability to support data management, good planning so we understand where not to put people, its ability to provide situational awareness, back at the EOC, at the ICP, and in the field with the mobile devices you saw, we can change this. This should never happen again. But we need partners to help bring this together and build solutions so that it doesn't.